hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, Monday through Friday, we hold Night School, where we break down some of the most interesting conversations, some of the most contested subjects, some of the most intense debates going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. It's Friday night, so we're going to have a singular conversation. We're going to talk about one topic in particular, and I can't imagine a better person to have this conversation with. For the last couple of weeks, the internet streets have been burning about flat earth theory, and things got even more intense when we saw a debate between Lord Jamar, who is a very popular, I would argue legendary rap artist, shout out to Brand Nubian, who entered in a debate on Godfrey's podcast with a man who you may not have known, at least not from my network. He's very popular on the internet, far more popular than me on the internet, but his name is Professor Dave. And they got into it, and it got intense. And regardless of whether or not you think the earth is flat or a sphere, I think it's fair to say that Professor Dave won the exchange. Even Lord Jamar himself said, hey, it wasn't my best performance. I think he said he shit the bed, to use his expression. He had some reasons why. We can get into all of that. But the point is, that sparked more conversations. And as the conversations got more intense, I realized that there are still a large number of people on this planet. There are a large number of people in our society who believe that the earth is not a sphere. They believe the earth is flat. And they have lots of reasons why. And, you know, as a journalist, I've always said I don't really like to platform dangerous arguments that have been empirically refuted or things that I find morally objectionable. You know, I don't have the, you know, is Nazism okay conversation on my platform. I'm not going to have the is, you know, beating your child okay conversation. I don't even have the is climate change real conversation on my platforms because these are things that I think have been, these are ideas that have been refuted both empirically, but also morally, philosophically, ethically, all the ways, right? These are garbage ideas and I don't want to platform them. But flat earth theory is a little more complicated, partly because some really smart people advocate it and partly because I think that there is a conversation that we're not having. But rather than bring a flat earther on, which I'm semi-open to do, I wanted to bring on Professor Dave, who could help us think about flat earth theory, explain why it's not a legitimate theory in his estimation, but also help me think about a kind of history of ideas here. Why is this thing so compelling? Why is this thing an idea that people are talking about right now? And you know what? Let me say right now before y'all get mad at me. You know what? I will have a flat earther on after this. Somebody who believes the earth is flat is welcome to come on this platform and have that conversation with you because I want to make sure that all voices are heard. But more importantly, first, right now, tonight, I have with me the man, the myth, the legend, Dave Farina, also known as Professor Dave. My brother, so good to see you. Welcome to Night School.
Thanks for having me. So
the first thing I got to ask you about the Lord Jamar controversy. I don't even know if I want to call it a controversy. It was a contretemps between you two. Oh, did you know what you were walking into when you jumped on Godfrey's platform?
I mean, for the most part, I'd never heard of him. A bunch of people sent me a clip of him on Godfrey's podcast spewing all the typical flat earth trite, and also being pretty arrogant, narcissistic, belligerent. And I mean, that's your typical flat earther. So all I did a reaction video. Sometimes I do reaction videos because I like to debunk, but some of my debunks require a lot of effort, a lot of research. But flat earth creationism, these things do not. So I can like drink some whiskey and watch it and laugh and make fun, you know, debunk the dumb things that they say in real time. That's how easy it is. So I just did that reaction video. And then Dante Nero, I didn't know that he actually was aware of my channel and had been a fan. So he reached out to me and was like, hey, can you come in and do this live to Lord Jamar's face? And I was like, all right. I mean, you understand, like, I don't think that they understood. I knew what was going to happen. I know who he is. I knew exactly that was exactly what was going to happen. I knew that for a fact. So I was totally prepared for that. But I said, sure, I'll do that. That's not a problem for me. When do you want to do it? And that's what happened.
what made it so easy? You said some things I got to do deep dives for, some things I have to do rich research for, other things I can pull up the whiskey and just go.
Yeah.
Is it because the idea is so facile, or is it because you've just heard the argument so many times?
It's both. It's the single dumbest thing that anyone can believe. And you can quantify that by how long ago we figured out it isn't true. Right? It's very easy to debunk creationism and young earth creationism. However, it's a little bit more difficult because it requires some knowledge of geology, evolutionary biology, genetics, etc. Because we only figured this stuff out around 200 years ago, which is a pretty long time ago. We figured out that the earth is a sphere at least 2,500 years ago in classical Greece at the latest, probably earlier, just not as well documented, that the earth is a sphere. From basic naked eye observations and simple logical exercises, we figured out that the earth is a sphere. And to believe that it's not a sphere, to believe that it's flat, is a disavowal of literally the entire body of science. You're saying geology, all wrong. Astronomy, all wrong. Physics, all wrong. It flies in the face of virtually everything that we know, that we have got, the knowledge that we've gathered over the entire history of science. And must also resort to extreme conspiracy because, by the way, we've been to space. There are satellites orbiting the Earth. Everything about our technology
Allegedly
save the Earth. Yeah, allegedly. But the sheer stupidity of it, everything that they say flies in the face of middle school level physics principles. And then combined with that, I've been doing this for years. I know every dumb thing they say. Everything out of Lord Jamar's mouth is just something he's regurgitating from an Eric Dubé video, which I've already debunked 1,000 times and sideways and this way and every which way. So I know everything he's going to say. I know how wrong it is. I know how to explain with crystal clarity how wrong it is. So that's why it was a complete evisceration. And he was dumb enough to not look up who I am or watch any of my content, or he would have known that I was prepared to dunk all over every dumb thing that he had memorized from the YouTube videos he's watched. And he maybe would have refused if he was a little smarter, but he didn't do that. So
I always, and maybe I'm too generous, but I like to not, and I'm not telling you not to, but I don't like to refer to people's worldviews, philosophies, etc. as dumb, because I'm always concerned that it closes off doors, it closes off opportunities. I mean, when people are operating in good faith, I mean, some things obviously aren't worthy of our attention. I agree. Someone says the moon is made of blue cheese. At some point, I feel like I can say, you know what, fine, that's stupid. Right?
Okay, this would go in that category. Flat Earth is in that category.
So, and this is where I want to, part of what I want to talk to you about, because I'm far from a scientist, right? I'm a social scientist, not a, you know, the kind that people care about. And so part of what I think about as an anthropologist is sort of how do people come to make sense of the world and how do people navigate the world? And in the scientific community, obviously, this is axiomatic, right? The world is just, the earth rather is just a sphere. It just is. But there are lots of people who don't come to those understandings in the same way. And so I'm always trying to think about how we get here, and also how we as educators can open up that conversation to more people. So the first thing I saw when I watched you and Lord Jamar was, wow, this got really intense really fast. And I was like, if someone is coming in on the fence, they could either watch how you're beating Lord Jamar in this debate and say, okay, flat earth is a dumb idea. Let me figure out more about Professor Dave. Or they could hear the name calling and all the other stuff and say, okay, this is just, these two people are just entrenched in their sides. I don't know who to believe. I don't know what to believe. Why did you take the approach of using the kind of language you used and the approach you used, as opposed to saying, I hear what's happening before I get on the stage, I'm going to rise above it? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't have. I'm just curious to know your how you thought about that.
Yeah. So these people are garbage. Lord Jamar is a garbage person. He's an absolute garbage person. And these people are so entrenched in their delusion. There's absolutely zero chance for good faith conversation. He's not going to listen to anything I say. I know this for a fact. I deal with these people and have dealt with them for years. So there is no way to come together and say, hey, do you see this point? And oh, that's a pretty good point. Do you see? That's not how these interactions are. This is not a genuine good faith discussion. They are there to rattle off their insane talking points and complete reality denial, and they deserve nothing but mockery. That's all they deserve, is to be mocked relentlessly until they realize how pathetic their entire mode of operation is. Right? They're completely allergic to reality. They're completely
let me pause you right there, because you said something that's interesting. I just want to drill down and make sure I understand you. When you say they don't operate in good faith, that could mean two things. It could mean they're being dishonest and they're cynically manipulating the public, or it could mean they really believe what they're saying. They just have no desire to be challenged by other information. Which one do you mean?
In the case of Lord Jamar, it's the latter. He really is that stupid. But the people whose talking points that he's regurgitating are the former. They're operating in bad faith in order to make money on the internet. They just found a little bit of a grift. And yeah, these guys, Eric Dubay is the one. Yeah, I mean, there's people grifting. See, here's the thing: is that this is happening from the bottom to the top in terms of, intellectual ability. If you're a delusional narcissist and you want to peddle this alternate reality that you're like this supreme genius, there are intelligent people who do this. Like, there's some of my targets that I say require a little more effort on my part. So a more recent one would be Eric Weinstein. He pretends to have this theory of everything that's going to revolutionize. So the thing is that he is actually pretty smart, and he has a doctorate, and he understands math and all this stuff. So he can put forward something that's bullshit, but relatively difficult to crack through, hard to get to the bottom of. But you go all the way to the bottom, you have this same mentality, but people who have zero ability to comprehend even elementary school level science concepts. So they have to reject the entire body of science. Whatever they're promoting, they all of knowledge is wrong. They can't operate at that higher echelon and then just sort of makes slight distortions that it requires a lot of training to detect and translate. So with Flat Earth, it's just a combination of delusional narcissism with just the worst cognitive ability of anyone on the planet, right? They're the dumbest people alive thinking that they're the smartest people alive. That's how you summarize Flat Earth.
Is it a kind of religious level faith in this idea, would you say, or am I overstating it?
In a sense, and a lot of them are highly religious and resort to biblical literalism to support what they're saying. It is undeniably cult-like.
Yes. Going to the ends of the earth. When they say someone's going to the ends of the earth, there's literal.
Well, it's just that everything is a conspiracy, right? Everything is the evil Illuminati, Freemason, satanic, whatever you want to call it, agenda. And we're the super awesome rebels that know the truth, and we're going to expose the evil people, and we're going to, awaken the world. And they literally think that they're Neo in the Matrix. That's not an exaggeration. That's how they perceive themselves. As being awoke, right? It's all this ridiculous red pill terminology, and they have that is their entire identity. If you are a flat earther, it's your entire identity, because all of the knowledge is wrong. All of the knowledge and everything that you interface with every single day is a lie and part of the whatever NASA's, whatever you want to call it, agenda. So it's something that they're engaging with every day. It's their entire ideology, and so anyone who opposes that is attacking their ideology. So there's this cult-like fervor, and it renders good faith conversation completely impossible, whether you're the grifter and you're protecting your grift, or you're the mark of the grift and you've made it your entire identity. And so even understanding Newtonian physics and gravity and admitting that gravity is real would unravel your entire identity. So they react violently to it and can't even admit basic things like that down is towards the ground, right? Stuff that like my 5-year-old son can understand this kind of stuff, but yeah.
So I'm thinking about, again, I care less about your beef with Lord Jamar, and I think more again about how people come to understand the world. And so, you said something that was really interesting to me. The flat Earth is just like the entry point in a way, right? I mean, it's if I can convince someone that the Earth is flat, then I can convince them that everything they understand about the world is wrong. That that there are no sacred cows at the epistemological level. That everything they were taught to believe is wrong, and then I can have them questioning everything, which puts me in a very interesting power position.
Yeah. I mean, flat Earth is the bottom of the barrel. I don't know if I would call it an entry point. I suppose it can be. To me, it's the end of the pipeline, right? You can get in it from moon landing denial or anti-vax or whatever. But I mean, if you go all the way to the bottom of that pipeline, it's flat Earth. Because flat Earth is a denial of literally all of reality and all of science. moon landing denial is very stupid, but it doesn't defy the laws of physics to suggest that we didn't land on the moon. And there's almost
distrust of the government.
Yeah, it stems from distrust of the government, and it's just generalized conspiratorial thought. Once you start digging into their talking points, it's totally unscientific. But just the singular concept of what if they faked a thing, it doesn't defy the laws of physics. So, but I would call that an entry point. And maybe some people enter in flat Earth. But what you're saying is true in that if you believe in flat Earth, you believe in every conspiracy. Every single conspiracy is within the flat Earth panoply, because all of science is fake. Every government on Earth is evil and perpetrating this deception, and it's insanity. It's complete insanity.
I want to present two counters to you, or that I think maybe not counters, because I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but two ideas that may be raised by people who don't agree with you, either somewhat or fully. The first one is science gets it wrong. I mean, I think about, you mentioned Newtonian physics. I think about Thomas Kuhn, and for those who don't know, you should read The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. It's an incredibly important book across fields, whether it's history, whether it's history of ideas, whether it's science, different scientific disciplines, etc. But there are often paradigm shifts in our society. There are often moments where we think we know something until we realize that we don't. And going from Aristotelian to Newtonian conceptions of physics, I mean, there are radical shifts in how we understand the world to function. And even things that seem self-evident, we've come to realize may not be. That's the first thing that someone may say, which sort of promotes the skepticism thing, right? It's like, yeah, Professor Dave may have it completely right based on what we know, but all truth is somewhat provisional, and we always will find better truths, greater truths. And then the second one, I want you to respond to both of them. The second one is the government can't be trusted. Particularly when I think about you and Lord Jamar's debate, and I say that because part of it was also the optics, right? There's this white guy coming in, calling this black guy, telling this black guy basically he's an idiot, doesn't know anything about anything. And the racial politics of that aren't, to me, important at the level of what's true or not, but it might be important at the level of the audience making decisions about who to trust, given the fact that there's a long history of the government lying to people, the government being dishonest, the government lying about everything from foreign policy to giving inaccurate information about the vaccine. Not saying that, not talking about the conspiracy theories. I'm saying, hey, there was a moment where we were told you couldn't transmit this virus, and then the moment turned out you could. Fauci wasn't always entirely accurate. Again, I happen to believe we gave the best information we had until we got better information. But that goes to the first point, right? Sometimes we get it wrong. And so why should we have this sort of unquestioning faith in the government, number one, just because they might get it wrong? And number two, this state does not have the intellectual or moral authority to warrant the kind of commitment and fidelity to their claims that some of us seem to have. What would you say to those two things?
Okay, so the paradigm shift talking point is just it's highly overused and misunderstood.
And just because I've never heard that as a talking point. That's purely just something that I was thinking.
No, I know, and I mean I deal with this. There's like pseudo philosophical content creators that make ridiculous content promoting electric universe and stuff like that based on this concept of paradigm shift. We need a new paradigm. So paradigm shift does not relegate the old paradigm. It doesn't throw it in the right. Obviously, the classic example is the Newtonian paradigm to quantum mechanics. So Newtonian mechanics still works. Works just fine, right? We use Newtonian mechanics to describe terrestrial motion today, always, and it works wonderfully. The only thing the paradigm shift did is that it relegated it to a particular, right? We figured out the Newtonian mechanics only works for things that are larger than atoms and going nowhere near the speed of light, which is everything around us. So Newtonian mechanics works just fine. Newton's law of universal gravitation works just fine. That's still what we use to calculate the trajectories of probes and send them through the solar system. So paradigm shift does not render an old paradigm obsolete. It just relegates it to a particular sphere of experience where it remains relevant. So there's no, right there, like we know things. And that we will know things later that could qualify as another paradigm doesn't mean we don't know the things that we do now. There may be qualifiers, we may revise things or whatever, but the Earth is a sphere. That's a fact. That's not going away. And then going to your second point about the government, it's totally fine to distrust governments, particularly in the sphere of, foreign policy and all the duplicitousness there. The government can't change the laws of physics. There's no government. We've known that the Earth is a sphere for thousands of years prior to any existing governing body coming about. And there's nothing that any government can do to change the shape of a planet or make gravity not real or make it real when it isn't real or anything like that. It's just complete insanity. And so, we can go, we can talk about the other stuff you mentioned about vaccines and Fauci and stuff too. All of the distrust is incredibly overblown and magnified for conspiratorial and propaganda-driven reasons. But it's okay to say to be skeptical of a statement or a individual study or something like that. It is not appropriate to be skeptical towards the entire body of scientific knowledge that has been gathered over hundreds or even thousands of years. That's preposterous.
I came into the university as a young graduate student at a moment where post-structuralism and postmodernism were being promoted as incredibly helpful ways of disrupting our understanding of knowledge and knowledge claims and truth claims. And one of the things we were always told is that science, capital S science, is something that has produced a certain kind of dogmatism that is not that different than religion. Right. What do you say to people who say the same way that you're saying that people shouldn't be doubting science, not questioning scientific claims? Obviously, you support the scientific method, but effectively saying this is true and science can't be debunked in this way. Big picture is no different than someone saying God said it, I believe it, that settles it. That you're just as dogmatic in your faith towards science as they are to this other stuff. What do you say to those people?
I say that is a talking point that charlatans use to try to elevate their pseudoscience up to the level of actual empirical science. It doesn't mean anything. Science is antithetical to dogma. Once something has been substantiated far, far, far beyond reasonable doubt, like the shape of the planet, it doesn't become dogma just because of how well empirically it is substantiated. Right? If you want to offer some alternative to something that has been shown to be that consistent beyond reasonable doubt, you need evidence. And something like flat Earth is not only without evidence, but also contradicts everything that we already know. So this whole science is dogma, capital S, whatever it is, it's bullshit. It's just something that charlatans and pseudoscience peddlers say to try to either elevate themselves up to real science or drag real science down to their level of confusion and propaganda. That's all it is.
That's an interesting response. I have thoughts on that, but for the purpose, I don't want to confuse the audience into thinking that I disagree with you. So I don't want to. As a social scientist, I think that there are ways that we come to investigate the world through positivism that we tend to fetishize scientific insight and scientific method in ways that deny or obscure at least some of the complexities of human experience and how humans come to know things. But
somebody might do that, but generally speaking, that's not a broad societal problem. The broad societal problem is science denial. Somebody out there might fetishize science, and I would advise that they not do that. I would advise that they not, elevate science in that way and view it, epistemologically in the appropriate lens. But that's not even worth you wasting a lot of breath on. We have an incredibly rampant science denial all over the world that may destroy the human race. That's the problem, not scientism.
Not the abstract philosophical arguments about and that's why I said I don't want to distract the conversation from that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to register that because if I don't, then all my academic colleagues are gonna be like, you just let them say that about science. So that brings me to this thing that my audience is going to be challenged by. This was the Godfrey problem, right? The gentleman who invited you on the Godfrey, basically what I heard him say in some way or another was, I heard Lord Jamar talking about flat Earth. It didn't sound right to me, but I didn't have the language to be able to explain why.
Yeah.
That's much of my audience. That's probably me to a large extent, right? I can't say I know, but I feel confident in the claim that the Earth is a sphere, based on how I understand gravity to work, based on my general faith. I mean, I've met astronauts who've left, right? So I don't believe that they're all on code or that B613 has taken them. I'm confident believing that the claims, the empirical claims have been made, and I mean empirical quite literally, that people have used their senses to see this Earth from a distance, as well as all of the kind of logical arguments for why the Earth would be a sphere, and also the polemic arguments. I've watched you and others debate people, and I think you win those debates. So I'm confident, trusting you and believing you, but I don't have the language to explain it. What would you say? And I know everyone should go on your website or your YouTube channel in particular. I've watched you break down hundreds of like how to debunk flat Earth theory. I watched you tear Eric Dubé a new one. Everyone, please go to Professor Dave's page, go to his YouTube channel, follow him, consume all of his content. It's very instructive. I'm just looking for a few big ones, right? How do I, when the flat earther rolls up on me and says, Mark, here is why the Earth is flat, or here's why believing the Earth is a sphere. I think they called you people globers, which I thought was cute.
Yeah.
Globe cards. Yeah, right. It's like opposite day. So if somebody calls me a globetard because I have the audacity to believe that the Earth is a sphere, what are they likely going to say to me, and what should I say back? What are some of the big ones?
Well, it depends which content they've been brainwashed by. I mean, there are two ways to go. One of them is just the purely conspiratorial route, like, oh, you believe the government, you believe the okay, which government? And you know that NASA's not the only space organization, right? There's dozens of them. Most every developed country has one, right? Are you saying does this cabal transcend the American government? And it's just, there's the purely conspiratorial, oh, you believe the government route, which is insane. Or they will try their best to, oh, it looks flat. There's no curvature. Most of them will resort to, it's flat. I see too far. I shouldn't be able to see this thing that's this far. That's probably where most of them start.
I shouldn't be able to see this thing that's this far. Meaning, I literally don't understand that. You mean like,
I can, if Earth's curvature is real, then this thing that's allegedly 200 miles away, I shouldn't be able to see it, right? It should be hidden behind Earth's curvature.
Even though the Earth is 24,896, I mean, like the Earth is so big, that doesn't seem logical on its face. Anyway, yeah. I'm sorry. Even if the Earth, I guess the humans can only see so far. I mean, it would seem to me, given the size of the Earth, that even if they were to concede for a moment that the Earth were round, I shouldn't be able to see the roundness of it by 200 feet away, right? I mean, is that right?
No, yeah. I mean, like the curvature, the Earth is so big that its curvature can't be detected by humans on the ground, right? But there is a limit to how far we can see. Not because of any atmospheric reason or anything like that. It is the curvature of the Earth does limit how far we can see. It's called the horizon, right? When you're at sea level, it's a certain distance away, and then that becomes further as you go up in elevation, right? The higher you go in elevation, the farther you can see, and it is because of Earth's curvature. But so they just run with that and they lie, right? Here's this thing 200 miles away, right? There's these pictures from what's his name? I forget the guy. There's one guy that they all cite, but he's always lying about the distance to them. He's lying about his own elevation. They don't take refraction into account. It's just lies and distortions of basic concepts. That's all it is.
What's the most compelling argument you find to the average person that the Earth is
flat Earth?
Yeah.
I mean, there is none, but the most would be that, like, oh, it looks kind of flat, and I can maybe see farther than I should. I mean, that's it. There's nothing else.
Okay, so I expected something more complicated than that. It's no. The Earth is flat because it's observably flat, basically, and there's no reason, there's no evidence that it's not.
Right, which of course, obviously, there are mountains of evidence, and I mean, it requires the rejection of entire fields of science like geology and astronomy and physics. But yeah, it comes down to that, and then, but it's not just that. Like, so I liked the easiest thing to do is to go back to the earliest ways that we figured out that the Earth is a sphere, all the way back in classical Greece or earlier. And that's just observations of the celestial sphere. It makes everything that we see in the night sky and the day sky, the sun, everything, like the motion of the sun, the face of the moon that we see and its motion, and the stars, the motion of the stars, depending on your latitude, etc., make no sense whatsoever on a flat plane. So they start from looks flat, see too far, and then they have to make all of these ridiculous ad hoc explanations for all of the other observations that make no sense whatsoever on a flat plane. And so that's where you get these like personal domes, and then they just some of them make up total fantasies. Some of them try to rattle off scientific terminology that they don't understand in hopes of tricking other people.
Like crepuscular rays.
Yeah, crepuscular rays. I mean, it's just, I know all these talking points. I agree with what you said earlier that like even no matter how dumb something is, even flat Earth, they have so many talking points that some of them you may not immediately be able to counter, right? What's crepuscular rays? I'm not sure if I had even heard of that term prior to debunking flat Earth. I may or may have not. I don't remember. But it's just it's a total misunderstanding of simple concepts like perspective. And you'll remember during that Lord Jamar part, he's taught, first of all, he doesn't know the word crepuscular. Doesn't know what that word, how to say that word.
He was saying corpuscular, and I've never bothered to look it up.
Right, corpuscular is like photons. They're corpuscles. Crepuscular, right? They appear to be diverging from a local source, right? But so then I hit him with the railroad tracks, right? If you stand on railroad tracks, they appear to converge, right, on a point in the distance. Are they parallel? Yes, they're parallel. We know that railroad tracks are parallel.
Better be.
That's how trains can go on them. And he had no response. He just change the subject. You know, that's how flat earthers are. They're completely ill-equipped for actual dialogue with somebody who knows what they're talking about and knows how to counter all these ridiculous things that they say. That's why he got real silent. He got real angry. And was just trying to jump through his list of ridiculous things that he's memorized that no one, and when someone shows him how dumb those talking points are, it's a violation. He felt it as a violation of his identity because he's put so much into this identity of I'm this red pill Neo in the Matrix. You can't fool me, Illuminati people. I'm one of the smart ones. That to shatter that is to just ruin his entire sense of self-worth. But it has to be done,
Understood. Which takes me to the last thing I wanted to ask you about. This idea of it has to be done. You consider yourself, you self-identify as a science communicator. Yeah. How does one become one of those? And why would one want to be one of those?
Well, yeah. So this is something I do a lot. I go to universities and talk about how to get into SciComm. I mean, so science communication has been going on for decades, but the term is pretty new since we as a society are slowly starting to realize how important it is as a profession. So a science communicator is somebody who has studied science and understands science and enjoys explaining science and explains science to the public. Right. So I don't do research. I don't teach any longer. I used to, but this is what I do. I sit around and I make content trying to explain science to the public. And it's extremely important because now that we're about 30 years deep into the information age, and we didn't really know what the internet was going to do. The most naively optimistic of us thought it would transform society into this highly knowledgeable utopia. The more pessimistic.
Dave.
Yeah, I was kind of in the middle. I mean, I was a kid when the internet. I mean, I'm old enough that I remember the internet happening, right? But I'm young enough that it came out when I was a kid, And so the more pessimistic of us maybe were a little wiser in the sense that we realized that democratization of information is hugely powerful, right? It's this logical conclusion of a series of events that began with the printing press, right? Allowing information, access to information among the public. And now everyone with an internet connection has access to the entirety of human knowledge at their fingertips. But that factual information is outweighed by a body of disinformation that is at least an order of magnitude greater. And so we've entered this total epistemological breakdown. Everybody is consuming false information. And so this existential challenge of the 21st century has emerged. How do we help people know what is true about everything, about every area of, it's science and politics, everything, right? People are lying all over the place. Politicians are lying all over the place. Demagogues are lying all over the place. It's not the scientists that are lying all over the place, although it's not that no scientist has ever lied. Obviously, scientists are also capable of lying, but what is much more prevalent is demagogues lying about science. And so there are scientists who communicate science, but they're busy. They're doing research. They're teaching. They have a lot of stuff on their plate. So we need this pool of career science communicators.
Let me just add one other piece to that. The other piece of that is that scientists often aren't good at communicating ideas to the public.
They may not be good at it. That's right. And it's not their job. I mean, I love it when scientists do, and I encourage them to do it, but we can't wait around and see which scientists wait to do it. We need a pool of career science communicators like me. We need thousands more people like me doing this, where all I do is not just how do I explain things really well, but also to look at the cultural consciousness, look at the broad societal discourse. What are people not getting? What are people getting wrong? Why are they getting it wrong? Where this doesn't come out of a vacuum, right? There are particular bad faith actors that insert these threads of disinformation into the discourse. Who are they? Why are they saying it? How do we expose them, right? So I put a lot of effort into not just providing factual, generalized scientific information, but also targeting these bad faith actors and exposing them and neutralizing their rhetoric. It has to be done,
Well, it's important work, man. The reason we have a show here called Night School is for that very reason. It's to provide education to the broadest, array of people, the widest range of community that we can imagine. Not having to worry about tuition, not having to worry about geographic distances, health, all ability status, that we should be able to communicate to as many people as possible. And YouTube is the wild, wild west, and so we're fighting an uphill battle, right? Yeah. I come on here and I have debates all the time with people who have no expertise in a thing. But when I put out a video and they put out a video, it doesn't matter, right? The public is trying to figure out how to kind of adjudicate between competing claims. And sometimes it's the guy or the girl with 1 million views versus the one with 5,000 views that gets chosen just because they have more views or because they have better tech or whatever. Yeah. And so it's really important that people like you who amass big followings are committed to this work, to truth telling, to challenging or refuting rather lies, and spreading as much as possible. How can we support you? What's the best thing people can do?
Just subscribe to Professor Dave Explains. I mean, I have a Patreon and memberships and stuff like that. I don't offer a lot in the way of unique content, private content. It's just kind of like, thank you, here's $1 a month for keep doing what you do. But yeah, Professor Dave Explains on YouTube. That's about it.
All right, everybody, go to Professor Dave Explains on the YouTube. Subscribe right now. Do the Patreon. And more importantly, like I always say, actually watch and consume the content. It will make you smarter. It'll make you more thoughtful. And it will prepare you when you get called a Glober, because you will be called a Glober at some point. Dave, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, thanks so much for watching Night School tonight. It was incredibly exciting to talk to Professor Dave. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel. That way, you can help us do the work that we do every single day. Also, finally, if you don't want to make a monthly commitment, I ask that you go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in the coffers. Consider it tuition for the month. It gives you night school. It gives you office hours. It gives you coffee and books. It gives you the classroom in the cell. We need your support as we wind down this month and enter a new month. Anything you can provide would be grateful. If you give $1, we're grateful. If you give $1 million, we are grateful. But of course, we do have a goal. And the goal is that if everybody watching right now, if every single person watching right now were to donate $10, we'd be able to meet our financial goals for the month. If every single person watching right now were to donate $10, we'd meet our financial goals for the month. So please think about it. And in the meantime, like I said, watch the content, like the content, subscribe to the content, share the content, but most importantly, study the content. Because that, my friends, is what Night School is all about. I'll see you later. Peace.